Today we're talking about how to be faster and more efficient moving uphill, and we're gonna climb Telluride Peak, so come climb a mountain with me. I'm Sarah, I live in the mountains, and I'm just trying to be happier, healthier, stronger every day. Have you ever noticed how climbing uphill is just really hard? Like, super hard. Like, it takes so much more energy. It's hard to figure out your pacing in the first place, and when you want to go faster, it doesn't follow a clear path of improvement like road running does. You might find yourself wishing you were faster and then spending tons of energy without even seeing improvement. When I first got into mountains, I made one big mistake, and that is going too hard all of the time. Uphill feels tough by default, and so we decide that means we're not fit enough, and then we push. We chase paces that don't make sense or aren't efficient for the terrain. And as a coach, I can tell you most runners, beginners to experience, default to a moderately hard effort with a big energy expenditure on uphill terrain just all of the time. And that's not how you ultimately are going to get faster going uphill. The biggest thing you can do to improve your uphill speed is just doing lots of uphill, lots of easy uphill volume. That's just like flat running. The key to running faster is to run more consistently and just do lots of running. The biggest thing about moving faster uphill is just to do more uphill, but most of it has to be actually easy, which might mean painfully slow. When you start going into the mountains, you are going to experience a very wide variety of terrain, and you're going to have to learn to adjust your pace to it, which is hard at first, especially when you're used to flat ground speed and you're thinking about pacing like minutes per mile or maybe even miles per hour or, kilometers per hour. I used to live in Leadville, and I've done a lot of laps on the really popular 14ers, and I see this all day long. Folks will push too hard and then have to stop every few minutes completely gassed, which is not efficiency, and it's not good for your aerobic base. It's technically intervals, but the intervals in this case are almost certainly not hard enough to be productive anyway, so they're just needlessly tiring and not contributing as well as they could be if you were metering your pace to be more consistent and sustainable. And the goal is to find a pace that you can sustain, even if it feels painfully slow. That's the best way to build your huge aerobic engine. I struggled a lot with refiguring out my uphill pacing post-chemo. I'm getting absolutely slapped. Still not crushed, just out of breath. Getting my butt kicked. I'm dying. So you might have heard me talk about this in some of my previous videos, that I will be really proud when I can do a big climb, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet without taking a single break. I was able to keep it steady. I only took 2 breaks. And I'm not proud because there's something wrong with taking breaks. It's because it means I've actually found the correct pace that I can maintain for the entire climb. This is the main struggle of mountain running, and hopefully you guys are here for it because you'll constantly be trying to figure out your most efficient pacing on different terrain grades. At first, all climbing will feel very hard, and you might put a lot of effort into climbing better for a while and still feel gassed and wonder what it's all for. But I bet that then you're moving faster for the same amount of effort and you just haven't noticed. So it's good to pick some climbs near you and do them regularly, like benchmark climbs, so you can keep an eye on your times. Because effort is not a good way to tell if you're truly improving. And your average mile pace isn't a particularly good way to be comparable on different terrains, but your per mile pace on the same climb can be compared. And so you can see if you're getting faster for the same effort. So just pick some different steepnesses for benchmarks, or maybe even pick climbs that are going to be similar to the ones that you're going to be racing on to be your benchmarks. So maybe you already have a big aerobic base and you've already done lots of easy volume. Maybe you've been doing lots of easy paced uphill and you're wondering what's next. So, next, you can gradually add uphill speed work. But, and this is really important, it's a lot of intensity, so much more than regular flat intervals if you're used to like normal road speed work or even like lower angle trail speed work. So just don't try to do everything at once. Think of short hill sprints, some longer intervals, even maybe uphill tempos eventually, but only after your aerobic foundation is already solid. If you do feel like you're ready to do uphill speed work, try cutting back on other intensity, like your tempo runs or your long runs temporarily, and just really watch your total stress load from training and also from your life. Like we talked about in the long run video, you don't want to increase any major stressors more than one at a time. And straight up running uphill is incredibly high intensity. It's a big stressor in your body. So you want that increase to be the only increase that you're doing at a given time and then recover properly from it. Most people's natural inclination when they start doing uphill speed work is to push harder than easy, but not quite hard enough to actually be productive. Like we said earlier, people really like that moderately hard pace, and that is zone 3 purgatory. Uphill speed work should be in zones 4 or 5. The bulk of your volume, uphill or not, should be in zones 1 and 2. If you go too hard on your easy runs, especially if they're uphill, you're just stacking fatigue and missing the aerobic gains. If you go too easy on speed work, it'll be tiring and not productive. You might start with either short, maybe 20-second uphill sprints, or maybe some longer uphill intervals, like 3 to 5 minutes, depending on what terrain you're starting on. Ultimately, it's good to do a mix of steepnesses and lengths, just like it is if you're doing flat speed work. In a perfect world, I would want you to start with uphill sprints on a lower grade, like 8 to 10%, and then try some longer intervals on a higher grade, like 700 to 800 feet of gain per mile, and then rotate through a mix of interval lengths on different steepnesses, different grades. That's too hard. Good uphill form is really important. Climbing exposes weak links, and one of the most common issues is a sleepy posterior chain where your glutes aren't pulling their weight and your glutes, hamstrings, and calves aren't necessarily working together. You can do some self-assessment or even get formal testing from a PT or a running gait specialist, but here's a simple tip. Think about small steps and pushing down into the earth through the ball of your foot and then up through your glute instead of overreaching where you take bigger steps. You're reaching through with your heel. You're putting most of the effort into your thigh and your quads and then kind of dragging yourself up with your hamstring. That's like too much tension for your hamstring and your glutes aren't going to work effectively in that position. It's kind of hard to see it, but if you think about pushing up and using your whole back of your leg, including your glute, then it'll balance out with your quads a little bit better. So climbing is naturally going to spike intensity. Even if you feel like you're taking it easy, you may still be pushing too hard. So track your effort, wear a heart rate monitor, keep most climbs slow and relaxed, save the burn for those intentional hard workouts, and make those legitimately hard and purposeful. If you're going to use so much energy to do uphill speed work, make it efficient and make it work for you. Always remember that training harder doesn't always mean the best and biggest gains. You want a really big aerobic engine to start with that you can then sharpen with higher intensity efforts. That means a lot of actually easy volume, no matter how slow that ends up being. And then a little bit of high intensity stuff to sharpen it. You've probably seen 80-20. That's not a hard and fast rule, but that's a decent way to divvy it up. 80% easy, 20% hard. That's a simpler way. Coaches will sit around doing a lot of back end math, but 80-20 is a simple rule, just like increasing your long run by no more than 10%. That's not a hard and fast rule, but it is a decent and simple rule, and 80-20 is the same. Oh man, this is so cool. It's almost like it's not even real. Okay, so what does an easy uphill even look like? Honestly, most trail runners, especially in the mountains, even the pros, the guys and gals that are winning the big mountain races, will hike the steeps in any circumstance besides a vertical K, like besides a really short race. And that's not a sign of weakness, it's efficiency. There is always a grade where running will become inefficient, and it varies by the person and other extenuating circumstances like what the surface is made of. But certainly by the time you get to 1,000 feet per mile, everyone is hiking no matter how fit they are, unless they are doing speed work or a short race. Like if you've ever seen Mount Marathon, even the fittest mountain runners in the world are hiking the majority of that climb. And that climb is only a mile long. It's just not efficient to try to run at that grade, even when you're trying to max yourself out. So certainly on your everyday training efforts, it's just going to be hiking. Wow. It's really good and useful to support your uphill with strength training that's specific to it. So glute work, hamstring work, always posterior chain activation can go a long way. Movements that help your body work synergistically, think of it as supporting your climbing and not replacing it. Since climbing is so much work, the synergy of your muscle groups, especially your big muscle groups, is particularly important. You'll want to figure out what your muscle imbalances are and work on them, as well as make sure everything is firing correctly. If you've been wondering if you should use poles, I guess that depends on the terrain you're on and how long your climbs are, if they're worthwhile. But poles do help your body work more synergistically by engaging your core and arms into the effort. Poles generally aren't super helpful if you're not used to them though, so if you do want to use them, make sure you're practicing for a while before you bust them on a race. You have to train your arms and your core to participate in a useful way, just like you're training your legs. Plus, if you use hand baskets, you really need to get used to those too, or you will get blisters. Wow. Holy cats. This view. And if you're training for uphill in a race or an event or a project, but you live in the flatlands, you still have some options: stairs, stair steppers, treadmills with incline, hill repeats, no matter how small the hill. Just use what you have. I remember when I was in cross country in high school, we had one hill on the school grounds, and it was like less than 100 feet. And we did so many hill repeats on that thing, and it still works. You're still training yourself for the same thing. It's Imaging Pass. Oh, yeah. Awesome. That is so pretty. It's easier to mimic uphill effort on flat terrain than it is to prepare for downhill. And you can train with your poles on stairs. It's not really easy to train with poles on a uphill incline treadmill, but you can use your poles on stairs and that should help. Okay, so here's your uphill running cheat sheet. Lots of slow, easy climbing. Use a heart rate monitor to make sure it's easy. A little bit of smart speed work. Use a heart rate monitor to make sure it's hard enough. Good form. Use your glutes. Strength work to back it all up. Be patient. And speed, confidence, and efficiency are going to come to you. And that is when mountain running gets really fun. And it is so worth it to increase your efficiency moving in the mountains on the uphill and the downhill. I'm going to link my Move Faster downhill video here. But it is just so worth it to put in the effort and have some patience to be able to move a little bit better in terrain like this and let your legs take you to all sorts of amazing places that you couldn't have even imagined. Thanks so much for watching. If you have anything particular you want to hear about, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.